Ra speaks. See through all eyes. Hear through all ears. Be the voice. Be a bee. Pollinate. Feel the beauty. See the beauty. Be the beauty. Wrapped in supreme happiness with maximum efficiency, minimum effort. The highest good of all concerned. The law of one. Shine, you diamonds, shine. Okay, well, I'd like to call in a being that we haven't met before that's on Alliance Galactic Council somewhere out there, and come and give us your perspective of how you see we're doing through this collective consciousness golden age, not only on Earth, but in our galaxy and probably other galaxies too. Ones that have been, watching us and listening in. You're welcome. We'd like to meet somebody new tonight if you would like to come in and introduce yourself.
Okay, let's see. I'm seeing, let me see where I'm looking at here. Okay, yeah, it looks like this, I'm looking at Tyler's vessel. And seeing, yeah, I saw him wave briefly, but I'm looking at his vessel, and it looks like the image is drifting. Looks like I'm getting some kind of interference again. Give me a second. Get rid of that one. Okay.
We're using the law of one when he does this. The law of one symbol and the law of one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, now it went back to Tyler's vessel, but there's a lot of spatial interference too. The energy waves out there in the universe have really revved up the volume because it's slightly staticky and slightly it would look kind of almost pixelated on a new television.
Well, we just asked one of those spheres out there if they could help us for the highest good of all, so we could talk to a being that we've never met before off of a galactic council. Thank you.
All right. Here's one that you guys have not met yet. I've met this particular being, and people will know more about him, when I publish my book, because there's just far too much information about this particular being, and it does coincide also with a lot of the stuff I know about the Blue Avians. I'm not quite sure whether this person is part of the Ra group or not, but I'm seeing a blue sphere, and give a very short recap on how I know this individual. There was this very long lesson set that I did. It involved some of my soul retrieval, and it involved me looking into like parallel universes and stuff like that. And I ran across an Earth called Lystaria, and you probably have heard me mention that name before, where this particular Earth at the time I was looking at it was in its medieval stage of development. It was like almost like a prehistory, where it was almost like wizards and sorceresses and stuff like that. Typical medieval fantasy look. And I followed the path of 3 travelers that made their way across this continent, mass continent, almost like a Pangea type continent. And eventually, this path had resulted in all 3 of these people dying. But what happened was, along their journey, they went over to a neighboring country, went up in the mountains, and they came across this big blue orb. And I noticed one of the people was deathly afraid of it. They called it the Forever Eye, and I heard them say this, and they said this had the ability to freeze people in a bubble of time, and which I'm going to say briefly coincides with some of the stuff Corey said, but that can be said later on. This was a channeling from almost a year ago, and this particular being, nobody even knew it was a being. They thought it was like a device or something. and then all of a sudden it flashed, and these three people. There's actually a fourth one in there too that joined later. They got frozen for a very long time, and then that being came to me and identified himself by the name of Tisnar. And Tisnar said that in the ancient past, the ancient Norse people called his people ice giants. And he said that there were some that went bad, and that's what was in the mythology about Odin going after the ice giants. And had this bluish crystalline look. And sometimes I see him in a man form, sometimes I see him in this bluish, luminescent, almost a watery plasma-looking orb. And kind of like the Stargate from the show Stargate, where with that blue, watery look. And I can see him, and when he talks, there's this light that pulsates in the center of it. And I can actually, that's who I am looking at right now. And I'll see what he has to bring through. And it looks like, I'm trying to see where he is exactly. It looks like he's going through space, and I'm seeing like this big collective something. Give me a second here. I'm seeing like a mass collective of beings that look just like him, and I noticed he was flying in like an orb form around this larger face. And I'm seeing this larger face right now, and I'm seeing who this larger face is. If this is still Tisnar, or okay, and this is still Tisnar. He just made a face for himself so that I could communicate with him face to face like that. And I'll see where he fits in the scheme of all these councils that are out there. I'll see what he has to say. He amended his name. I apparently was correct with the analogy to what Corey had mentioned with the time freezing, because this being is now calling himself, even though his name is Tisnar, he added the Ra'ul prefix to his name, so he is Ra'ul Tisnar, and he is saying there are certain types of them, of the Ra group, that look a little bit different from each other, but they are all one. And when I heard him say we are all one, I knew what group he was a part of. And so this actually makes a lot of sense to me right now. And he is saying, and the face I am seeing is a bird face now. So let me see here. Okay, yeah, he says his assignment was to monitor and record the happenings in the Omniverse. He got separated from the rest for a time. It was very isolated. And let me see. I'm having a hard time hearing him. There's some interference here. And even though he was isolated, he still knew he was one with all there is. And so it did not bother him at all. And let me see what else here. And there are several other quote unquote ice giants out there that are part of other soul group collectives. He himself are not just part of the Ra, but a part of the Purple Flame and the Mists of Aventor. And these particular individuals of the whole Ra collective are ushering in the new golden age by integrating these other groups. Yes, and that I just heard him say yes a couple of times, which is probably on the recording too. I get that a lot. Let me see what else he's saying. And these groups include beings such as fairies, gnomes, leprechauns, and all manner of nature spirit. Hang on, I'm having a hard time hearing him this time. Oh, he just said, blessings be to all who listen and to all who need to find. We are Ra, and we are one with all there is. Blessings be. And
blessings be. Go ahead.
And Tisnar is backing off now. Yeah, it looks like it looks like the scene's fading. So.
Well, that must have been one of the spheres I called and asked to help with the energy, so we can bring in a new being, a person that's from another galactic council for the Alliance that we haven't heard from yet. So come forward, you guys.
Let's see who
and
else.
Share with us.
Let's see who else comes through. I'm having a hard time seeing here. It's the light's rather dim. I can see figures in shadow.
I just ask that the light turn on for the highest good of all concerned. If we can have it a little bit brighter. Man,
it is. There's out there in the solar system. There is a mass amount of interference here. But Tyler warned me about this from time to time. This would happen. It's like it's a mixture of these psionic waves and stuff that are going through the system, solar flare activity, and it's a mess energy-wise out there at the moment. But I'll see if I'm gonna push through this and see if somebody else comes through. Oh, there we are. There's somebody. I'm having a hard time seeing their features, but okay, this is somebody I know. And I may have mentioned him on the call, or may have been on one of the council meetings. I am not sure, but I can't remember. But this guy, he is a mantis, and he's a good one though. And his name.
Namaste, mantis.
His name is Bugnasi.
Oh, Bugnasi, namaste.
And I hear from him all the time. So let's see. And he says the interference is being felt planet-wide, solar system-wide, and even outside the system, beyond the barrier, it's being felt. There's some energies that a barrier cannot keep out or keep in. And let me see what else he says. He is, to recap his position, he's the head of the moon facilities, even knowing and unknowing to some people. He's in a different density, so some would see him, some would not. It's unknown whether Corey or any of those people, some of the humans there would have seen him or not. Maybe not. But let me see. Yeah, he's saying some have seen him. And I'm asking him which density he's actually on, and he said 5th. So, and he's on the moon facilities, and yeah, he says he's the director of some of the moon facilities.
Cool. And the other whistleblower for the secret space program is Randy Kramer, that I know of. He was a super soldier for a lot of years. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, he was shaking his head really quickly up and down. So. Let me see. I'm seeing if what he says his role is, and he says him and Tyler work closely together. It may not always appear that way. I don't always see that, but him, Tyler, and a lot of others. He's showing me thousands of others. Some I recognize, some I do not. I'm seeing familiar faces and unfamiliar faces. I'm seeing very large people. Very large people.
What are some of the familiar faces you see? Just put out a couple names.
Some of the saint names you might recognize, like John. He's been on here before. I see him in there. I see Jesus in there. I see his whole family, extended family in there, like his mother and everybody. And then let me see. And I'm seeing, let's see how many. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces, like some of the Elohim Council. I see some of the Blue Avians. I see who else is in here. There's some groups that people on the show wouldn't be familiar with, like the Kopna. They are nature's law enforcers. They've been called ogres in history. I see them in there. Let me see who else. I'm seeing a very large giant standing with them. Extremely big. And he looks like 50, 60 feet high. And my focus.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm seeing.
There's one that's hard to imagine. That's one that breaks our imagination. That's good. Maybe he'll speak too after Bugnassi. Who knows?
Yeah, it looks like Bugnassi let's see, is kind of next to him, and Bugnassi looks like a bug next to him. So that's how big this guy is. And this big guy looks almost Viking. He's wearing a helmet. And let me see what his name is here. He says he is having a hard time understanding him, and he's not speaking my language. Give me a second here. Yeah, I can hardly see him because of the interference, but he looks Viking. He's wearing not like a horned helmet or anything. He's just wearing like this pointed, like bullet tip looking helmet. With like a nose guard. He's trying to tell me his name, but I'm having a hard time hearing him. He is. Oh, really? He says this is going to be an interesting one tonight. He says his name is Goliath.
Oh, Goliath.
Yeah.
He was a giant in our history.
Yeah. And I didn't expect that. I'll use the law of one first just to see if he's actually okay or not.
Or if he's not an imposter or anything. Yeah.
Yes. No, and when I used that on him, he laughed and he says, "No, I'm not an imposter."
Namaste, Goliath. Yeah.
And let me see. I wanted to see if he was lying or not. And he says he's not. Bugnassi says he's not. He says he's joking around. He says reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. And he says history was told wrong in that respect. He did not die like the mythology said he did. And he's happy somebody's actually hearing him out right now. So let me see what he has to say. He says he's a lot taller than the mythology says too. He's telling me. Okay, he says he has the ability to make himself look smaller if he wants to. And in this energy respect, he changed his height so he was equal to everyone else. And he walked up to me. Now he's only about maybe 9 feet tall. And I said, why was he so large before? And then he just looked at me jokingly and said, why are you so short? And let me see. And,
hey, this is a fun. Goliath is a funny one. I like you already. Thank you for being humorous. We need it.
And he says he's one of the builders. He's one of the builder race. And he says he's been asleep for a long time. He says the mythology that surrounded him was mixed up with draconian lies. he says. And
is he one of those that was asleep with that technology?
yes.
And is waking up like Corey and David talked about?
Yes.
That
Yes.
big long red beard and stuff like that?
His beard
Really?
is, yeah,
Oh!
yes. That's exactly what he is. I don't know why he showed himself 50 feet high before. I think maybe he was just joking around, but he says he can make people think he's any size he wants them to. He's extremely telepathic.
Well, let you tell what you want, honey, and then I would like to get a little bit about why you guys put yourself to sleep and a little story about that too. Okay, go for it.
Yes, and he says, oh God, he's speaking in a different language, but let me see now. I'm trying to see what he's trying to show me what language his people spoke. Oh. He says he's speaking Atlantean. I said, well, I'm asking if he was on Atlantis, and he shakes his head yes. And
oh, cool.
and he says the Draco wanted to discredit some of his creator's accomplishments, so they made them all look bad and evil, and even to the point of the story of King David chopping his head off, or in some cases it's his brother chopping his head off. But in some whatever story you want to go with, but neither one happened, because obviously he's right here speaking to us, so he didn't lose a head. Oh, he did lose a head, but they have the ability to fix that. So okay. Because there was a channeling I did with John one time that he told me he was also Lazarus and John the Baptist, and John the Baptist got beheaded, and then he says Jesus revived him. So this was something similar. Apparently, was done with Goliath. I'm asking him who did it to him in reality. Okay, this is slightly confusing. He said the history was wrong, but he just confirmed that David did indeed do it. I said, is David one of the bad guys then? And he's shaking his head, yes. And I said, okay, this coincides to a bit an EVP I got many it's not many years ago, but a few years ago, where my mother and I were asking the ghost box about the Bible and King David, and because we had just watched the Bible TV series, and we heard a voice come in and say they made David too tame. And so this what Goliath is telling me now coincides with that particular message at that time. That was sometime in 2012-ish, somewhere in there, 2013-ish, somewhere in there, whenever that series came out. But what else is he saying? Yeah, he's showing me like Scandinavian countries. I'm seeing like Norway, Denmark, and he's pointing further north. Okay, I was off a bit. He says he goes Iceland, moron. I'm like, okay. He's showing me areas like Iceland. He's showing me this lake that looks like it's white. And he says some of his people are still there, underground there in Iceland. Let's see what else. And he's showing me inside this lake that's very milky looking, and you can't see anything that's in there except if it pops out. And I'm seeing a dragon face right now coming out of this lake, and Goliath is pointing to this particular dragon. He says this guy is very large. He can change his size at will, or at least make it look that way. And he says this guy guards sleeping giants. And I'm face to face.
He guards them for the good,
yes.
or he guards them to keep them down there.
Both actually. He guards people from waking them up or disturbing them, or if they wake up too early, he tells them to go back. And
Okay.
and let me see. This guy, I'm looking at this particular dragon now, and I'm seeing what his name is. He took more of a man face so that so I could talk to him easier. And let me see what his name is. He says he goes, my name is. I'll write this down. He says his name is Mosai. Mosai. And he says he's a guardian dragon. And he says some of the earlier Viking people thought his people were the Draco. And he's confirming it again. And he himself had to hide from that because he didn't want to spook people. And also he didn't want to get hurt himself. But he goes in this lake in Iceland. And this lake looks very familiar to me. I've seen it on television before. And in fact, I saw it on an episode of River Monsters one time, where they were tracking a very large creature they thought to live in this milky white lake in Iceland. And I remember seeing a video with this like dragon-looking being, and he's confirming that he himself was sighted.
Well, I want to say namaste, guarding dragon in Iceland. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you for protecting them.
Yeah, no, he says, he says thank you, and he's shaking his head. He says there won't be too long now before the rest of them will wake up.
Okay, thank you.
Let me see. Well, Goliath is coming back into the picture, and he says Mosai here woke him up. And he's showing me this now. Him and Goliath are showing me this scene from ancient times, where I see these people like in knights' armor fighting Mosai. Mosai had been spotted, and these foolhardy knights wanting to go slay the dragon went after him. And apparently they can breathe fire too, because I'm seeing like fire coming out. They can conjure the elements and everything. That's where the fire breathing came from. And he's keeping them away from that lake and from himself. And he's trying to. I can see he went back under the water, trying to get the. He's telepathically tricking the knights to leave. And they are, and he's trying to wipe their memories and everything of his existence. But he is telling me he's been confronted several times. That's why he doesn't come out. But Goliath too. He said Goliath is telling me when the last time he woke up, people tried to kill him. Either tried to kill him or tried to get them to kill for them. And because he was so large and so adept, they figured if they had him on their side, they were unstoppable. And he refused. Unfortunately, he got harmed because the Draconian forces spotted him, and the same goes with this Mosai guardian dragon. The Draconian forces spotted him in their respective time frames. And that's why the humans were kind of the pawns in that kind of went after them in their respective times, and told that they were the bad guys. Hence the slaying of dragons in medieval times, and hence the beheading of Goliath in biblical times. So,
Wow.
yeah. So that's very interesting.
So I want to ask Goliath and Bug Nazi, are they a part of a galactic alliance that we haven't met before?
Yes. They are members of the ones we know about, but they said they have their own groups that they haven't told me any details about. Like Bugnassi, there's some things Bugnassi's never told me. Yeah, and he's nodding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you guys like to give us a report? What's on your hearts tonight to report to us so we can galactawise and not just hear it, but help increase our vision, our positivity, our beauty, thoughts, and intentions in creating beauty on Earth and beyond?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Bugnassi was showing me where he comes from. He comes from a different time. It's still Earth, but it's a far, vastly futuristic time. And he's showing me himself. As I'm seeing if this is himself. Yes, he's showing me himself in the future times. There's this lake, and it looks again like a Scandinavian country. I can see a lake with trees and all this other stuff around it. And he said he was born into service of the One, and that in this lake where he was born, he automatically had the genetic memory imprinted in him to do service of and for and by the One. And he eventually knew his mission was going to send him back here, and he formed a group, of beings as he went along. Even though we've heard of like the big intergalactic alliance, I said with the Blue Avians, the Andromedans, and the Serpogreys, but these guys are like a scattering of different time continuums and everything, and different places. And he's saying this particular council of beings is tight knit, and he's putting that in quotes. This particular group, what he means by tight knit is they're an extreme inner circle that people do not know about, and they do now because we're saying it on the radio. But these.
Oh, thank you for coming in. I'm honored. I'm so honored. Namaste. Thank you for what you do. And keep doing it.
Some of the dragons are part of it. Some of the bug people are part of it. Goliath looks like he's part of it. And I'm seeing a vast amount of people that eventually will be in it. I'm seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of people. He says it's tight-knit, but not so much number-wise, but in, what's he saying here? Concept-wise. I'm going to ask him what he means. Meaning of a certain vibration. Okay. Okay. Of where these people, I'm having a hard time understanding them tonight. These people have a specific mission to interweave something into the genetic memory, which will bring about this core mission that they eventually, some of them get sent on, especially if they're from a future time frame. And they know, this tight-knit group know who's supposed to be involved and who is not. Meaning that doesn't mean anybody can't be involved in service to others. That's not what he means. In this very specific mission set, to where, dang this interference, to where the genetic memory is altered to accommodate the omniverse within solid form. I'm asking him to confirm, and he's saying yes. And I'm asking him what he means by omniverse in solid form, and he says just to confirm the one in all things, but on a genetic level. And this isn't like genetic manipulation or anything like that. It is, but it isn't. It's more of an energy tweaking, which then changes the genome, which then, leads to them eventually coming back and doing it. But he's showing me this tight-knit group started out in his time frame and eventually made their way back. He says there were 6 or 7 of them to start, and it looks like there were several insectoids from that time, and I can see a couple of Nordics in there. There's a soul group in the future called the Human Concordate, and I've made contact with them on many occasions. I mention them in my book, and I'm mentioning them again in my new one. They're a group of future humans that form their own soul group in 10 to 20,000 years' time. And Bugnasi, though, he comes from about 300,000 years from now, when the human genome favors some of the placed-in insectoid DNA that the Greys stuck in this time frame. And even though, okay, he's going to that for a minute. He said even though their actions are reprehensible, they are part of the highest good of all concerned, because their negative actions spring life in the future. That is positive.
Absolutely, I agree.
Not to say that their negative actions are excusable. It's just that some things are written, and that's one of them. Just like, and he's showing me an example, just like with the Draco doing their thing, what they're doing is reprehensible. But if they were not around, we would not have a comparison to what is not to be done. And we would not evolve if somebody wasn't holding us down first. We evolve past it and we become stronger. And I've seen this concept many times. Other beings that said they were oppressed and they rose above the oppression, non-violently, of course, and evolved from that. And let me see here. Yes, and he
So
says,
are they working on anything? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he says. He said he's cutting it off now. He said this is all for now that he is permitted to say on this tight knit group. Let's see if he wants to add anything else beside that. Nope. Yeah, it looks like he's done.
Okay, so what would you say in a nutshell? That was a lot of technical stuff. What would you say in a nutshell that they're helping with us today? What they're beginning or helping with this alliance? What they're doing for the golden age?
They are bringing about the golden age through it looks like focusing of energy on our genome that eventually brings about theirs. But just by allowing certain things to happen, not allowing certain things to happen, like in accordance with the history they know, a history they know works, and that will be to everyone's highest good, even though it doesn't seem that way.
Well, it makes sense that Andrew Bartus talks about different collective consciousness groups. Like when our vibrations change, we'll be able to go like in like just for a bubble in the air. There's thousands of air cities that are natural for us, even Earth. But then we'll be able to, work as a team. They'll bring us there, kind of be and mentor us as we change our vibration, and then we'll start working together. That's
exactly it. I still see Goliath, so I'm going to see what he's saying. And I'm seeing this. Is Mosai there? Yeah, I'm seeing him too. And they are saying. They're just looks like they're going to leave, and they're saying, "Peace be to all. Don't always believe the history that is written. Form your own opinion and forge your own destinies," are what they're saying. And
peace be to you too, and bless you.
And and they are. Looks like the image is fading. They're leaving now.
Yeah. Well, let's bring Chris out of the pudding.
Okay. Okay, I'm here.
Hey, Chris, I just want to call in our galactic brothers and sisters, and the ones we've met, the ones we haven't met, the ones that are listening. just call you in, and I just want to give you the reins tonight, you and Chris, and to add to what we've already built. It's your turn, galactic-wise, with Chris. Meet Chris if you haven't met Chris, and he's safe. And because we're all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed, and when one is helped, all are helped. So therefore, the name of who we are, and we are all one with all that there is. So we ask that only the highest good of all concerned happen, here and now. Take it away, Chris.
Okay, there's a little bit of a story behind this. I was given a link. Heather gave me a link to a page the other day about the Norse mythology, and I didn't know that much about Norse mythology, even though I interact with the Norse gods. I didn't know, and I knew about the nine realms and all that. I didn't know the names of all the planets, the worlds or the realms that were within the nine worlds and all that. I knew a few of them, but based on my channelings, and I knew that it was that their mythology was based on densities and different planets and different densities. But what was interesting was, I've always been drawn to the Norse mythology. And, several readings lately, a lot of the Norse gods have come out, like Thor, Baldr, Odin, all of them. And I was looking at this page, which I'll put the link. I'll give you the link for the blog. It's too long to speak out, but went on this where somebody had illustrated all the nine realms and the nine worlds and their meanings and such. Well. Came across one that I'd heard of it before, but I didn't know it in overwhelming detail, and it was Jotunheim, the land of the giants and mountains, and this ties right back in to recent material that was on Cosmic Disclosure, and this ties back into a lot of channelings I've done over the years. But not quite this direct. You remember Elizabeth, the channeling I did with Goliath not that long ago on the show?
Yes.
And he said he was one of the sleeping giants.
From what Corey brought out? Yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the sleeping giants. Yeah, and I'd heard about the giants that lived underground before, and about them being asleep and everything like that. Well, came in contact with one by the name of Larnsmer. And he came to me and said his people are called the Nephilim, like what says in the Bible, the race of giants that were the product of the sons of God and man. Well, he told me a little bit about he came in contact as I was reading this thing about the mythology, and when I came across the word Jotunheim, that's when I saw this guy come in, and Larsmer said he would come to me and guide me for a little while, and talk to me about certain things. Not all of it I can remember, but he came out, and I saw exactly how tall this man was. He was easily 9, 10, 11 feet tall. Somewhere in that range. And I was looking at him eye level because I was looking at him through my third eye. But if I stood next to him, I would look like a child next to him. But he showed me, where some of his people are kind of hanging out, and he showed me this mountainous area that. Looks like it was this mountainous area with this path going underground, and he told me that is where they had woke up, and that the new energy had set off the alarm clock pretty much, and they woke up, and then I look in the mythology, and that's what Jotunheim looks like from what he showed me, and he was just showing me that it was just a different density, that we could just go there and talk to him if we wanted to. And then I get a message the other morning that I was supposed to that I gave to Jerry Wills, and that it was for him, but it also pertained to me too. That we all would eventually, meet these beings. And Jerry talks to a set of beings he calls the ancient dudes. And at this place, if you get on Gaiam TV, that he has an interview on there called Cafe on the Edge of the Universe, and he talks about the ancient dudes. And these beings are closely, interacting with these ancient dudes, as he calls them, and saying that they would all come to us at a time here soon and interact with us on a more physical level. And what was interesting was when Lardsmere, first came to me, he said that evening, I would be sitting with them by a fire, talking about the ways of the universe and all this other stuff. Well, when I did the bilocation that night, they were him and about maybe a dozen other giants were just around a fire. And I'm trying to think. I can't remember completely what was said. I'd have to go through my notes again, but they pretty much said that they were indeed the Nephilim of the mythology, and that they indeed were the ones that we would call the builder race, and the race of giants. So when Vlardsmere first came to me, he said that he was one of my lost giants, and we watched a show while it was on called In Search of Lost Giants, and it's a show about them. About their remains being found in underground tombs and such. And
Can I just put a prelude in here? What these giants Chris is talking about, that Chris has known about, and then Corey and David bring this out. Corey brought it out. He learned it in his travels when he was in the secret space program. But these giants, actually, he calls them stasis beings. And they actually, at one time, how long ago, I don't know, put themselves to sleep with the technology with like an alarm clock to wake up at this golden age time. And these are what Chris are talking about. And apparently they've woken up, huh, Chris?
Yes, they've woken up, but they're in they are able to go to a different density, which is this Jotunheim realm that's in Norse mythology. And that's where they're waiting for everybody to come see them. When we get to that density, and they know we're just on the verge of doing that. I don't know what density they're in. I would assume it's 5th density. And
describe what ancient builder race is, and then do whatever you're going to say. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, they're a race of giants. In the Bible they were called the Nephilim. They were the creation of the Anunnaki to help build some of the bigger structures and stuff around the planet. You hear them mentioned constantly in the ancient myths, the giants in Greek mythology. You hear them Norse mythology, Egyptian. You hear them everywhere, and you hear them in Native American mythology, where they battled the tribes for a couple decades. The natives were scared of them. But Sasquatch got thrown into that mix too. I found out they're actually another tribe called the Anakim. They're of the same. There's 4 different races I found out. There's Nephilim, Anakim, Elim, and Rephilim. And when I looked that up, I wanted to see how many other giant races were out there. And there's 4 of them total. And I've already come in contact with 2 of them. And I haven't come in contact with the Rephilim or Elim yet, but
what did the ancient giant builder races actually do or start out for us, or what is the, in a nutshell, story about that?
They told me that they were created by the Anunnaki originally, they were their children, and they were originally sent. Some of them were created more or less as slaves by the bad Anunnaki, but the ones that created the good ones that created them meant them more as like children, and knew that they would come into play in teaching humanity later on. Except when the bad energy came along, they got enslaved along with some of us. But that's what created some of the more Norse mythological stories and stuff like that. about like ancient gods battling and such. That's what they brought across to me. But they didn't give me a whole lot more. They like it when I seek things out on my own first, and then they confirm it. But they did give me that much. And while I have been sitting here, I know Vlarsmir is around because he has a very distinct energy signature, and they are a soul group. They just call themselves the Nephilim. That's all they call themselves. And just like the Bigfoot call themselves the Anakim. Well, I'm gonna see what he's saying when he's coming through now. And I've noticed he has a very strong accent. It sounds like a mix between what you did think of Scandinavian and Russian, the accent-wise. And I know from doing research that the Russians are actually descendants of some of the Viking people, so that makes sense. Well, let's see what he wants to bring through here. He'll more than likely fill any of the gaps he has not told me. So let's see here. Yeah, okay, he's not going to speak through me. He's just relaying things to me. He's saying, in this time of the new awakening, we have indeed awoken and agreed to do this long ago with our creators. They had a word for creator, but he translated it for me. The Anunnaki, that everybody knows them as the Sumerian gods, created them. And let's see, they said the original intent was to create a race of teachers that could interact with humans on a level that they would understand. Even though humans themselves were created, the Nephilim, it appears, came either around the same time or later. I'm going to clarify this. Oh, the Nephilim came before, but they were not of a how is he trying to bring it across? They're not of an even footing as how humans are. Also, the fact that there's a size differential there. Humans over history were afraid of them. So that kind of put a kibosh on them trying to teach anybody. But then when the Draco got involved, it really, everything hit the fan at that point. But he's saying the dishonorable ones, the snakes, as you call them, affected our creators and turned some of them, to their side. This is why some of them appear as they do, as snakes in your mythology and in your reality. This is why some draconians have elongated skulls. Those were once our creators that have been corrupted. We, the Nephilim, pray that some of our teachers can come home again, not as the snakes of the earth, but as the gods we once knew. The draconians turn them as your vampire-ology says. And this is what caused the wars. We went to sleep and prayed to awaken in the golden age. This golden age is now. You are now humans living in this new energy. Embrace it. Do not fear it. For we are right here to guide you. Do not fear us, though we are immense in size compared to you. And he's laughing. This does not matter. We are no different than you are. Though we were created, quote unquote, as were you. You are the second generation of us. Though you be smaller in stature, you have the same capacity as our creators. And our creators came from the One, and they are the One, as are all of you. We are the Nephilim, and we watch in the mists of time and in space and in density, as you call it, for when you come to visit us in our home mountains of what you call Jotunheim. We now peacefully step back. Blessed be.
Hey, can I ask them? Thank you. I'm honored for you to come to Diamonds Forever 31. Can I ask them if we want them to teach us, each individually or as a group, what's the path?
Okay, yeah, let's see. Yeah, he's showing me a scattering of images here. Let me see. Okay, the path is not the journey you think it is. Path is not it does not need to be some long drawn out, quest for greatness. All it requires is you finding the oneness in yourself. That way, when you come to us, our teaching then becomes learning, and then our learning becomes teaching. That answers the question.
That it surely indeed answers the question. Thank you. Love you.
Yeah, they're all smiling. I can see several of them. They're now when these beings say they're backing off or stepping back, that doesn't mean they're leaving. Usually, it just means that they're backing the energy off and waiting for other people to talk. But yeah, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, 10, 11 of these giants, and they're bilocating to my position, but they're actually sitting around a campfire at the base of a mountain in Jotunheim. And,
I want to be at that campfire.
Yeah, and they're the big fire.
It makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Huh? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I said this. What did you say? There was what fire?
The big campfire that they're sitting around. This fire is dang near big as them, and they're all just sitting around this big fire with these stones sitting around them, and they're sitting there. It's nighttime out. I can even see the star pattern that they're sitting under, and I can see several planets. It looks like they're sitting within the 9 realms, because I'm looking up at the sky and I'm seeing all the other worlds within the 9 realms, including future Earth off in the distance. So it's a totally different star pattern. There's nebulas and comets and all sorts of things that are on the edges of galaxies and everything that I'm seeing above them, and no glow of any cities or anything like that. They said their technology doesn't give off that kind of light pollution. It actually gets diffused and allows the starlight to come through.
Sounds really, 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 really nice. And, this is making sense because with the cosmic disclosure, they talked about, our, just for lack of better words, the ego pride-minded guys. We're discovered these giants asleep, and the technology that would wake them up in the golden age, like now. And now it kind of makes sense why they were studying them, because they might have known that they're going to wake up and they're like our mentors and teachers meant to be, so we can learn from them and then teach, like they just said. But it makes sense that they didn't want them to wake up, or they're trying to figure out these stasis beings, these giants, not to wake up. But too late. What do you think, Chris?
Oh yeah, they're going to wake up anyways, just like with Sudan's people on the moon, like with Buddy Moon and them. Same thing, it's an alarm clock that sets them off. It's this new energy that it was a timer that was set to go off when the beginnings of that energy were forming. And
well, it was amazing, and the bad guys knew about it, and I'm not saying anybody's bad or good, but one of the caves that they went into in the story of Cosmic Disclosure, they signed the people that went in there, they worshipped them as gods, they said, and people signed their names on this stone, and one of them was Abraham Lincoln. So all of these guys know. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and some of them they said are still asleep, but they're going back to retrieve some of them, and they when they left the system, the ones that woke up when they left the system. They immediately went back to Jotunheim, and they said it. I'm going to see what they're saying. It's as if they never left. Nothing had changed in Jotunheim. And
Beautiful.
yeah, and it's just this peaceful valley leading up to this mountain, with pine trees around, and I can see like these carved stones all over the place. And also, I'm seeing the stones that aren't stones too. I'm seeing the interdimensional technological rocks too, going up this pathway where they can pass back and forth. And to add on to that, I did a channeling over a year ago where Apollo had first told me about the stones that aren't stones, and he wanted me to analyze one with my energy to see if I could decipher its capabilities. And I could see that into dimensional layers, these stones existed in different dimensional layers. And he goes, "Well, what do you think of this?" And I said, "It's not a rock at all. It's technology." And
Uh-huh.
and he goes, "Exactly." And he showed me how he passed from one dimensional layer to another as he used these rocks as portals, and these giants did the same thing to get to their home of Jotunheim.
Well, so now I'm thinking all these different rock structures all over the world may be technology covered up.
Yeah,
But
Stonehenge.
can I ask? Yeah, can I ask? Stonehenge, Easter Island, the pyramids. Can I ask the Nephilim, the giants? Because we prayed the Law of One for them. When we learned one of the diamonds calls when he brought Goliath in, and did that help for them to wake up too? Did that help in the mix?
Yes. When they woke up, they themselves started implementing different procedures that they were trained for, like their creator's original intent. They trained them for this age, where they had to follow a set of protocols. And I'm going to see what those protocols were. Give me a second. They said, okay, now Vladimir is talking. He's saying, the protocols of which you speak are simple. We wait. We wait for humans to reach us, as we said before. We wait for the learning and the teaching to begin. That is all. And let's see. Okay.
So us humans brought in the Law of One that helped them. They waited. The Law of One came, and then now we're waking up more. Right? Is that correct?
Yes. And they said Earth is a mixture of different beings, and when the Ra brought in the Law of One, even though humans corrupted it at one point, that triggered a chain reaction through history. Even though there was good things and there were bad things, all of it needed to occur to build us up to this point. Even the Draco, as evil as some of those beings are, it still brought us to this point. And I found out in Norse mythology, there are a group of snakes that eat away at the roots of the tree of life. And I interpreted that as the Draco invading Midgard, which is Earth, at this point in history. It depicts this point in history. So, and they're all nodding their heads in confirmation to that. But they said all those events brought people to this point, and they also figured if they had stayed out in the open, they would have interfered with that process, and that's why the Anunnaki left as well. This is why the Ra left, and just watched. They wanted to make sure we got to this point on our own 2 feet, and we have. Most of us have. There are those that haven't. They'll end up having to go to another third density planet, but like the Cabal people. But from what they're letting me explain this because they're seeing if I can get this out correctly. And this is how they're also teaching, is in silence. They're waiting for people's intuition to kick in with this new energy. And as I'm explaining it, I can see Varnsmeer kind of grinning, and he's kind of slowly nodding his head up and down. And okay, now he wants to speak. He's saying this is correct. What he says is correct. Our people had to stay away for the learning to begin. Our presence would have hindered humanity, not helped. But now we welcome you back as brothers, as equals, in the learning and the teaching, in this golden age, as you say. And what is he saying? Okay. He says, our creators will also return, but not for some time now. Even though they watch, them returning right now would also hinder. So we, the Nephilim, are taking charge of that. Humans will meet them, but not for an age or two, until they know that they can be on complete even footing with humans. Not to say that in an arrogant way. That's not what's being said. They are saying technologically, scientifically, spiritually, they prefer to intermingle with beings physically on a level that's equal to the stage they've attained. And they want their children, humans, to attain that. But even if they appeared right now, they would damage that evolution. The Ra, on the other hand, even though they agree with that, they will appear at times as well, which they have from people from time to time. The Anunnaki have too, but not near as much as the Ra. And they are visiting people's homes in order to aid with this vibrational change. And now the Nephilim, they are awake. They are bilocating to places, like what they are to me right now. And all they're doing is sitting around a campfire. And there's a symbol in this as well. Them sitting around this campfire. They're being in the moment. They are bilocating to anywhere they want. And they are teaching people even by just sitting in place like that. You are traveling to distant places. But that doesn't mean that you get to just sit on your butt and not go to places either. You weren't built to just sit in a chair either. They have an equal understanding of being adventurous, like being an adventurer, going out and doing things, according, to the mythology, and they're nodding yes to this too. Adventuring, going out into the world and seeing it, but then also to be able to sit in place and just be. Those two sides have to be intermingled. And they've taught me this enough. A lot of other beings have come to me and said, yeah, there's only so much you can do from sitting at your desk. Even though I'm being productive, I still have to get out there physically. And this is the message they are also getting to people. They want people to explore their world, not only inner world, but outer world. And they want people to go on an adventure. Do what you need to do. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Like what Cynthia was saying, she pretty much took the words right out of their mouth too. They're saying the same thing. Don't give in to the fear that these people are putting out. They are so deathly afraid of this happening. They are trying to turn our own abilities in on themselves, like what you said, Cynthia, and they're reiterating the same exact thing. So the idea is, as hard as it is, ignore them. And I'm guilty of this too. Draco comes in my face. I fight back. I'm guilty of this. Tyler has spoken to me about this many times. Simeon, my guy, Jesus, Michael, all of them. You don't have to accept being attacked. That's not what they're saying. Of course, combat that. That's not what they're saying. Have that inner protection outward, so therefore if somebody strikes your shield, the law of one automatically infuses them, and they fall over and they go through their conversion, like what I see would happen to all these Draco. Or if somebody's being attacked, like and I go to cleanse them, I shoot them with the law of one symbol, shoot into their head. That's not necessarily attacking them. It's not considered, really violently going after them. Yeah, they are saying you don't have to tolerate being attacked. Don't accept it, but don't wantonly, angrily go after them. Or it's counterproductive. And like I said, I've been told about this a couple of times. Like they've made me mad a couple of times, and I've gone after them. But I was told use the law of one if I'm going to do that. Like they've gotten me angry enough to go after them with just plain old-fashioned fire, and that's apparently I've been called to task on that a couple of times. But they were saying nothing wrong with the element of fire. Nothing wrong with even its destructive force in nature. But if it's turned on somebody, it becomes a weapon, it becomes a tool of violence. And that's not something that they wish. So, going back to the protection, shield yourself, bring that inner protection out, use the law of one, or any variation thereof. Even if you come up with something that is similar, or some kind of poem or word or something, and add in for the highest good of all concerned, and add in when one is harmed, all are harmed, when one is helped, all are helped. All of those, and we are all one. If any of that's added or to some variation thereof, it's good enough. And I give thanks this has done all of that. Any variation of that is good enough, and it speaks the same truth. And I'm going to see if they have anything else. And they said, we are on the correct path doing this. They said the only thing that's more that is needed is eradicating that mindless and useless fear. There is no purpose. It serves no purpose. Now, there are purposes to certain types of healthy fear, like skeptical fear, like if you're skeptical of somebody's intentions, or if something is telling you to back off intuitively, or if there's some kind of margin you have to obey. That's different. The unhealthy kind is just in constant panic and worry. And they are I'm gonna see. Yeah, they're definitely reiterating this. They're coming out with this, going. Let's see what Barnsmear has to say. He goes, okay, there is no worry, or no reason to worry about things like bills, money, even though you live in a financial society, a slavery imposed upon you. It serves no purpose to worry or, as you say, cry over spilled milk. However, it is your responsibility to not see yourself as enslaved. For if you do, you give in to them. See yourself as always free, at one with everything, and see them with at least a certain level of compassion. Now, this is not to say that you allow them to do what they do. You have to oppose what they do. But as we said before, do it with compassion, law of one, kindness, love, all of that. Now, granted, these beings have a reputation in history for the best warriors our planet has ever seen. They're known for their axes and their swords and their songs about glorious battle and Valhalla and all of that. But they do it. It was done in defense, not in offense. Now later, human Vikings, they contorted the messages. The original Nephilim, however, yes, they did fight. Yes, they did fight in battles, and they still do. But it is in defense only, and is using things like swords of truth, light, shields, defending, or protecting, shadow swords defending, things of that nature. The balance. This is not the same thing as violence, outright wanton violence. Very, very different. People have misinterpreted that throughout history. And they are, let me see what else they're saying. Yes, they're even showing me shield patterns that the Vikings created, like these round, multicolored shields. And they're showing me these that they themselves have, they're holding, with helmets and swords. And they're showing me the shield is round, and it has these multicolors representing the Bifrost, or the Rainbow Bridge. And it's a continuing circle of life, the oneness that is protecting people. And that shield was corrupted, just like the law of one was corrupted. It's the same identical thing. This shield is the same thing. And it too was corrupted. And things like blades and all that were added. And they're showing me a sword. They're showing me a sword of light and shadow, almost like a yin-yang. And it looks like a standard Viking sword. And they're telling me to touch the blade and to see what's on the side here. And I'm seeing images of their ships, the Viking, like dragon ships and such, going across water. And they're showing me that this sword was not meant for outright offensive killing. This was meant to defend their way of life when they crossed over the Bifrost and crossed over the waterways. And the symbol of the sword was also corrupted by humans. The Vikings did it by seeing battle as glorious, violence as glorious, pillaging, and doing all they did later as glorious. This was not the original intent. It's just like how the early Egyptians misinterpreted the law of one. It is the identical. And he's saying this shield and this sword are humanity's to bear. And he's saying this. He's throwing this sword and this shield out, across the Bifrost. I can see the Rainbow Bridge, and the sword is sticking at the end of the Rainbow Bridge, and I can see the shield hanging from the guard of the sword, swinging back and forth, right to left, across the sword's hilt and guard, and saying, almost like somebody swinging a metal detector, saying, "This is your goal. This is your law of one. Cross this bridge to get to it. This is the quest that we are asking humanity to embark. This is the mystical quest or journey, like you would think of in a story. Find this shield, find this sword, but you don't necessarily have to do what you think you have to do to get it." And they are leaving that up to the people. They say, "This is our request, our longing. Go for that sword and go for that shield, and you will find your Valhalla. You will find your Asgard. Will find your heaven, but on earth." And now they are stepping back, and they are waiting to see if anybody has anything to say.
I just want to say thank you, Nephilim and Giants. And like I say, you tricked us again. You're teachers of us, and you just did a teaching session to this group. So thank you. I'm honored, and I love you. I'll take it to heart. What you said and Cynthia said, we start worrying, manifested, done, and then pray the law one for the highest good of all concerned. And what you said, I'll listen to this call. I will listen to this call this week as I go through what you're saying. So thank you.
Yes, this message was just as much for you as it was everybody else. So I had a feeling this is what they were going to get at. So they are bowing to us now, and I can see them holding swords up and yelling and cheering and everything, and they are pointing to that sword at the end of the Bifrost. They're putting a white light ring around it, and they're pointing to it, and now they are all, Lawrence Smear and everybody is waving, and they are now leaving. So
beautiful. Well, let's see else who's in the lineup with you, Chris. First of all, I just feel like, Cynthia, do you want to share on that just a little bit? I feel like you want to say something. If you're still there, Starstick?
Yeah, I'm here. That was beautiful. That just filled me up. That was like a beautiful drink of just pure life. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Nephilim. And it's just so wonderful that our family is regathering, that we are all of one mind. We're all of one heart. We realize that life is fun, that it's an adventure, that we really are all one, and that we love each other, and that we are loved in return, that we have powers beyond belief, beyond the logical mind. And I just want to say, I guess on that note, the logical mind, I've been studying it more in the literature, it only knows the past. And where we're going is uncharted territories. We're creating ever anew. And the logical mind is wonderful. It's great for making an apple pie, say. But let's let it be a servant and not a master. And let us go within and become as little children and dream our fantastic dreams. Have our fantastic visions. Visions of happiness, of joy, of fun, excitement, love, courage, beauty, just beautiful feelings of creativity, of adventure. I love what they were saying about the adventure. And I got it. Chris, that was beautiful. And I honor them back. I just say, I'm glad you're family. I'm glad we're dancing together. And I'm glad that only the highest good of all concern is unfolding in each and every glorious, new, exciting moment. So back to you, Liz.
Thank you so much. Okay, Chris, you got the lineup.
All right, let's see who comes through. Sorry, I had my mic muted and I dropped it, so I had to pick my mic handle up. But let's see. See if anybody else is coming through. Okay, this time it's Jesus coming through.
Jesus, I love you.
And he is. There's somebody else coming through with him. I'm having a hard time seeing this other person. The vibration is very different. I'm seeing this person in like a almost like a space suit. And let's see here. And Jesus is saying this individual is special. Not like everybody else isn't, but he's saying this one, let's see, has wanted to speak for some time. But I can't see this person's face. This person's in like a closed-up spacesuit that's multicolored. Can't see a face or
You're
anything.
welcome, this person. We love you, and you're welcome here. Don't be afraid. We love you.
And I'm seeing big. This person is well built, big muscles. It's not like tall. Like he's not tall like the Nephilim is. But let's see. Okay, now he's taking the helmet off. And I was just mentioning them. This is one of the Anakim. He's what we would call a Sasquatch. And let's see. Jesus is showing me this person, and he's short for an Anakim. Anakim are usually just as tall as the Nephilim, but this looks like a young one, and like a child, I think, or an adolescent one. And let's see. Showing me a big forest, very similar to what the Nephilim were showing me. But only the trees are a little different. They're not all pine trees, like we'd expect from one of our forests here. And let me see. And Jesus is following this guy around. Let me see where he's taking me. Aha. Okay, they're both showing me this village that is within a different density of all of these beings, the Anaki. And it looks like they are building something. They're building some kind of gathering place. And Jesus is showing me this child wanted to talk to. I just got corrected. He's not a child. He's just shorter. Okay. Never mind. That was an abrupt one. He turned around and went, But he's showing me, he's kind of chuckling now. He's showing me they're building something like a gathering place that looks very similar to something the Nephilim were showing me, kind of like in that Norse theme. And I'm looking back over Jesus. He's not wearing he was wearing a white robe before. Now I'm looking at him and he's wearing armor. And he looks, he almost, with his hair tied back and everything, he looks almost like Odin. And that's also who's around too. And I'm seeing the rest of the Norse gods in the background. And seems to be the theme tonight. I'm seeing this village or this gathering place. And it looks like Jesus is showing me that the Anakim have been told to build this place in preparation for us entering fifth density and above. And it's no different than with the Nephilim. The Anakim are preparing for our arrival as well, to where they can walk as equals amongst us. This is why they show themselves to people. They're trying to form a dialogue again. Because a long time ago, humans didn't meet them very warmly, and so they had to hide. And but now they know that when humans are entering this next density, they can be welcomed with open arms. They always have been welcome, except that humans weren't very welcoming. So now I'm seeing this place being built. It's being constructed in real time right now. And Jesus is showing me, he's pointing to the workers, and some of these workers are, okay, it looks, oh, interesting. Some of these workers are actually some of the Nephilim as well. And even though Varnsmere and them left, and this one Anakim individual came through, they're showing me that the builders still build. And the Anakim were also charged with this same task. And they still build in preparation for this golden age. And I'm seeing a familiar Anakim approach me. Now, I had one of them come to me, one of the very first ones, when I asked who the Sasquatches were. This was quite a long time ago. I asked who they were and if they were human, if they were alien, or what. And Simeon, my guide Simeon, brought to me an Anakim by the name of Telnorskus. And Telnorskus is one of what they would consider to be almost like a deity, like how we considered Jesus, or any of the Norse gods or any of the other gods. And this is who's in front of me now. He's fairly large. I would say he is roughly 10, 11 feet tall, and he's pointing this one littler Sasquatch out, and he says that's his son. And I've met this one before, but I cannot remember his name for the life of me. But this particular Anakim came to me in a dream, showing me things about the inner earth, and I found out this younger one is roughly 300 years old. But Telnorskus, on the other hand, he told me his age quite a while ago, but he is just as old as some of the Anunnaki. He's up in the 100,000 year range or more. And he has the ability to regenerate. If any of you on the show have ever seen Doctor Who, where he can regenerate, into another incarnation, that's what this particular individual can do. It's something along those lines. And he's showing me this outer world that's being built, this gathering place. He says this is a very special place. It's being made of wood. I can see this smooth wood, like somebody was building a ship, like the Vikings building one of their ships, and it's being built in the same fashion as a ship, but it's a hall, and I can see even the other Nephilim from before are walking in there and sitting down and watching this happen. And I can even see the Orion souls, which are the Anunnaki. They're showing up around this and watching. And everybody's watching. And Telnorskus is saying, watch the builders and my own people, for they prepare for the day that humans and Anakim and Nephilim and Anunnaki and all the rest of the watchers can stand as equals. Not to mention they aren't equals, but they are. And let me see what else he's saying. Yeah, and he's saying, and he's smiling. At first, I thought he was gritting his teeth at me, but nope, he was smiling. He's just larger. And I've communicated with this man several times, over many, many, many channelings. And he's shown me things like parallel universes, how the inner Earth can go to different places. He's shown me his family. He's shown me him how he can die and come back. All sorts of things. And he's now showing me the result of all of this information and all of this energy is this gathering place. Not to say there aren't others, but this is like in the middle of the woods. Nobody would ever even think to look here unless you were purely using your intuition, your heart, your soul, everything. This is also another reason they hide things way back in areas where people can't get to, because people eventually will be able to through things like teleportation and things of that nature. People in different densities will be able to pass into different realities, like we pass through a door, or walk from one place to another. So some of their own people have this capability. I can even see some of their people. Some of their people have like curled horns, like a ram. And there's different hair colors too. There's blonde, gray, white, black, yellow-ish, more yellowish than blonde, red, like an orangutan, all sorts of them. And let's see where it's switching out. Switch to nighttime, kind of like how I saw where the Nephilim were. And it's switching to nighttime, and there is a fire in the center. But he's saying it's not a fire. Not a fire. It is an energy being channeled in the center. And there are two, I'm seeing birds in the center. They look like cranes or like ibis birds, like from Egypt. And, the Telnurskus is telling me now the Ra wish to come through. So they're the ones coming through in the center. They're showing me this is the result. They're showing me after the building place is done. I jump to a future time where the building place is done, and they are coming through in the center. It looks like a Viking ship, but it's a stationary structure, and kind of like a mix between an arena and a ship. And let me see here. The Ra are saying, okay, they're coming through really strong now. Looks like Raul Tem is coming forward, and he is saying, okay, this is going to be a big one, saying, we are Ra, we are in the essence of greatness and of oneness. We tell you, precious humanity, that this place in the middle of seeming nowhere is your goal, but your goal is not always to travel to that place, but to find it within yourselves. Then, while doing so, you travel to this place. Forgive the double speak, but this is our truth. This is the way we see the universe. And this is the way we view you, our precious humanity. And we say to you now, this place is in the hearts of every man, woman, and child in creation. Every person, everywhere. Even the ones you call cabal have this capacity, even though they choose never to utilize it. We say to you now, they must be, as you say, defeated, but only with the tools that we have helped you provide for yourselves. Not of violence, but of passive resistance, as your Gandhi would say. We show you this meeting place in what you call the future, but it can also just as easily be the present, which it is, because time, from what you understand it, does not exist. We are Ra, and we are now stepping back. Blessed be. And let's see, is Telnorskus wanting to say anything? He is now bowing, and he is saying goodbye to everybody, and he's backing off. All the Nephilim are waving again and raising swords and mugs and all this other stuff, and they're all kind of drinking and feasting like in the myths about Valhalla, where they're all sitting around a table eating and all this other stuff. And let's see, and one of them just yelled out, "Valhalla is Earth." And a big Viking warrior just raised a mug, and they all raised mugs, and I can even see Raoul Tim in the background pointing to all of them. And let's see, meaning that we also have to be social since we're all one. We can't just think we can go this alone. And now that the scene is blurring out as they're all waving, and it looks like it's fading out.
Chris, in your own words, what is your intuition they brought this for? This message and the description of that place in the forest and all their actions and stuff.
The way I can interpret this is not only, of course they say live in the present, but they also say everybody has to interact. They have to interact peacefully and not violently, even against the cabal people, which we all, we all at some point have harbored some kind of disgust towards them. I'm guilty of this too. But they are saying fight them off by evolving. And by evolving and staying in the oneness, and also traveling, seeing the world, like what the Nephilim have said. And then we find Valhalla, but we find it within ourselves. So therefore, when the Earth does evolve, Earth is Valhalla. It's that other density further on down the line. But since time is one, we have to see that as now. This is something Tyler has reiterated to me many, many times too. He's drummed into my head time and time again saying, time does not exist. Live for now. Live that adventure for now. This is the message I took away from all these beings coming through tonight. At least that's how I interpret it. Anyway.